Good morning. I would like to address the incidents of public protest and civil unrest that occurred last night. At yesterday's City Council meeting, many Anaheim residents expressed their concerns and opinions about the incidents that occurred over the weekend. These people properly exercised their democratic rights, and we on the City Council, their public servants, heard and appreciated these comments. However, I am disturbed by the events that took place outside City Hall. Some protesters, many who we believe were not from our city, chose to take advantage of this evening of dialogue to try to create chaos in our downtown neighborhoods. They chose violence and vandalism over respectful communications. I'd like to commend Anaheim Police Chief John Welter and the Anaheim Police Department for the response to the unrest last night. Their response was swift and appropriate. I'm here to say that vandalism, arson, and other forms of violent protest will simply not be tolerated in our city. We don't expect last night's situation to be repeated, but if it should, the police response will be the same, swift and appropriate. Regarding the officer-involved shootings, let me reiterate that I've called the U.S. Attorney's Office to conduct an independent investigation. When the investigations are concluded, we will have a clear and complete understanding of these incidents. At that time, we will have additional public dialogue about any actions that need to be taken. In the meantime, we on the City Council are happy to hear from any and all residents who have opinions to share with us about the police department, City Hall, or any other part of city management. We will not, however, accept any violent protests, vandalism, or arson perpetrated under the guise of public protest. Anaheim is a strong community and a community that works together to solve its problems. My door is always open. I think it is important for city officials to hear from people we serve. If you have a concern about our city, we'd like to have the dialogue. But violence and vandalism have no part in the conversation. At this time, I'd like to give Police Chief Welter an opportunity to provide more details on what happened last night.
Prior to the start of the council meeting last night, over 200 protesters gathered inside and outside of the council chambers, and they were mixed in with community members who came to make public comments to the council. The number increased to over 1,000 as the evening went on. The council chambers and the entire lobby were full of various community members who were in attendance and who expected to be able to speak in a peaceful and lawful assembly. As the council meeting was about to begin, protesters began to become increasingly loud and threatening, not only to the police but to others in the area. They were disrupting the council meeting and completely blocking the building's emergency access in or out. The start of the meeting was delayed by the mayor so that we could clear an emergency entrance in case there was a need to evacuate the building or in case there was a medical aid situation. No one was able to get in or out of that council building. At the start of the meeting, after the delay, police came and moved people back in a peaceful manner. It took a while to do that, and we cleared an entryway. After a short period of time, protesters began moving en masse into the downtown area of Anaheim, and they took over a major intersection and completely blocked traffic. Several warnings were given by the police at that intersection. They were warned that they were breaking the law. Traffic was diverted, and after allowing the crowd to protest for a couple of hours, the violence escalated to a point where an unlawful assembly was declared, and the street was then cleared of protesters. Throughout the next several hours, groups of 50 to 100 moved throughout a few blocks in the downtown area. Many were damaging public and private property, throwing rocks and bottles at police and others, throwing them at passing motorists. One man was reported to be in possession of a handgun, and he was later arrested. Various streets throughout the 4-block area of Anaheim were temporarily closed to protect the property and prevent injuries to the community. Less lethal and non-lethal munitions were used when necessary, and that included beanbags and pepper balls and batons if appropriate. We're continuing to examine various videos that were taken by many individuals in order to identify specific lawbreakers in the crowd. We'll continue to make arrests whenever possible, and those arrested will be prosecuted. I would like to caution the general public that if you find yourself in the middle of what you believe to be a peaceful and lawful protest or demonstration, and you see that laws are being broken, objects are being thrown at police, attacks on innocent individuals, I suggest you immediately get out of the area and not remain with the group. We will continue to facilitate any and all peaceful, lawful demonstrations. We recognize that is the right of the people, and it's our job to see that they can exercise that right. However, we will not allow riotous, dangerous violations of the law by anyone. We will protect innocent people from being injured and property from being damaged. Just a review of some of the damage and incidents last night. Over 20 businesses in the downtown area were damaged. Windows mostly broken and other damage to property. A police car, several police cars were hit with rocks and bottles. There were 24 arrests made, and 20 were adults and 4 were juveniles. There was damage to the police department, to City Hall, and to numerous businesses. We had over 300 officers from throughout the region in Anaheim. It was early on in the evening where we had committed all of our forces at Anaheim PD, so we asked for aid from about a half a dozen agencies in our area. There were 279 officers and 30-some sergeants and lieutenants and captains and others that responded. And the other agencies took our calls for assistance so that when people dialed 911, they could get a police response while we dealt with over 1,000 demonstrators. Some of the arrests included assault with a deadly weapon, failure to disperse, interfering with an officer, resisting arrest, battery, and other violations. And it's our intent that if this continues, we will continue to make arrests and prosecute all involved. And at this time, I would, is this being turned over to someone else now, or?